should be able to hear yourself now, sir. How are you doing? Can you hear yourself?
He's a little bit too close to the
Talk.
edge of the frame.
1, 2, 3. I guess I can.
Huh?
I'm not sure. 1, 2. I don't think so. 1, 2. Oh, maybe I can. Yeah, get close enough.
He's a little.
Yeah, you have to be like this close.
Yep. Okay, I got it now. Mm-hmm.
His shoulder's on the edge of the frame.
You want me to move the camera a little bit?
Either move the camera or move over an inch. Or pull the camera back just a touch.
I can't see it, so keep it coming.
Good, good. Oh, too far. Too far, yep. Perfect, stop.
I was telling Joe, when I do the initial introductions, mention your name.
Yes.
Just say hi, your business, and where it's Bucky. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Biz and Tax Matters with Mike and Dennis. I'm your host, Michael Davis. I'm a certified public accountant, and my co-host is Dennis Markowitz.
Good morning, and I am an enrolled agent.
We both operate from Bucks County, Pennsylvania. Today's special guests are Joe King.
Yes, hi Mike, happy to be here. I'm a independent personal trainer from Doylestown, PA.
And Dr. Phil Pappas.
Hey, good morning. Thank you for having me on the show, Mike. I'm a clinical nutritionist, and I work out of Buckingham Green. My health food store there is Earth Foods, and I have an office in the back of the store.
Oh, great. Anyway, I've got it up here, and the wrong thing's coming up. Anyway, our mission is to inform our listeners every other week as to the various aspects of running a business, the tax code, and answer any questions you may have. So please call in your questions to our live number, 609-460-4673. Also, we're simulcast live today through PANJ YouTube page at www.panjtv.com. We will monitor your comments and provide our feedback. If you're interested in our past shows, they are now on our website at www.bizandtaxmatters.com. And just so you know, if you're listening to our live show, today is Tuesday, August 29th, 2017. We will also have an email address which is Biz and Tax Matters at mjdaviscpa.com. Our show is available in podcast at panjradio.com and will be replayed at 11 a.m. every day for the next week. So if you're not listening to our live Tuesday show, send an email with your questions and we'll answer it on our next show. Our email address again is bizandtaxmatters at mjdaviscpa.com. Please note tax talk in the subject, and our live call-in number is 609-460-4673. So Dennis, one of the top things this week is the Taxpayer Advocate is now warning that the IRS frequently asked questions on their website. You can't rely on that.
Well, that's always been the case. They just wouldn't admit to it.
Right, but they're now saying that if you go to the answers on the frequently asked questions and on their website, don't rely on the answers that are there unless they are published in one of their publications. So don't listen to what they say is what they're telling us.
No, don't read
Don't read what they say.
what they print.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
The IRS is developing client record management systems. While attending the National Association of Tax Professionals Conference in Washington, D.C., Commissioner John Koskinen, which I'll mention later, revealed that the IRS is developing a client record management system. The system, which is still in the prototype phase, will be featured at one of the IRS nationwide tax forums in Las Vegas, San Diego, and the National Harbor in the Washington area. And according to the commissioner, the IRS could take at least 2 years to test and release the new application. The proposed client record management system is part of the IRS's future state initiative to improve tax administration and taxpayer service. And I call this Big Brother is watching.
yeah, exactly. And they are trying to improve their administration, and they've been doing that for a while. They have made some improvements. So they're working on it. Anyway, the IRS also discussed timing issues with claiming research and development credits in a legal advice that was issued by the Chief Counsel regarding the ability to take research and development credits against payroll taxes. They conclude that employers who take into account the credit, starting with the first payroll payment of the quarter that includes the payment of wages subject to Social Security tax. The credit may be taken to the extent of the Social Security tax associated with that first payroll payment, and then to the extent of Social Security tax associated with the succeeding payroll payments in the quarter until the credit's used up. And basically, they want you to match taking the credit to when you actually create your research and development project. They don't want it before, they don't want it after. They don't want you waiting for the quarter where your wages are the highest to do it. They want you doing it when you're starting your project.
Yes, that's interesting because what they have found, the longer they wait, clients who are late or even later, and then they can't catch up.
Correct.
Anyway, the IRS issues frequently asked questions to explain new appeals and compliance conferences. In May 2017, IRS's Office of Appeals implemented an initial initiative to hold regular conferences for certain types of cases between appeals teams and compliance examination teams to improve the efficiency and case resolution. While appeal teams had invited the compliance teams to conferences in the past, this initiative will make attendance more routine. IRS has issued the frequently asked questions to provide guidance on the initiative, which relies on taxpayers and compliance participating in focused discussions to identify factual and legal differences, to assist appeals in evaluating issues and facilitating resolution. As in the past, the settlement negotiations will be held between appeals and a taxpayer without compliance present. Taxpayers cannot elect out of participation, and compliance cannot raise new issues while the case is under appeals. If a taxpayer raises new issues, the case will be returned to compliance to examine the issue. Now, I am not a proponent of that. I've handled a number of appeals, and I just want to deal with the appeals officers, because it's easier to convince them of your case than have the compliance team there, which can contradict you, and it's not advantageous. This is more advantageous for the IRS's side of things.
Well, then that's probably why they're doing it.
Absolutely.
So they're we've got a budget deficit. They've got to do what they can to raise more money. And maybe that's one of their plans on doing it, is not acquiescing in some of these cases.
Yes, they're doing that and a lot more. They're finding out that they're making as much money with penalties for non-compliance. And at that point in time, I tell clients, you must comply. Don't go by your rules, go by the government's rules.
Correct. The IRS has denied a tax-exempt status for a software user group. There's a private letter ruling where a software user group whose membership was limited to users licensed to use a particular software of a particular company. Based on the information that the taxpayer provided, the IRS found the activities were restricted to the users of one manufacturer and their customers, which provide a competitive advantage against its competitors and their customers who may use other brands of the software. And then the IRS determined that the taxpayer does not meet the definition of a tax-exempt business league as defined in the code, because the activities were not directed to the improvement of a business condition. They determined that it was more towards increase the profitability of a line of business of the manufacturer. So they do look at that. I mean, I work with several nonprofit business leagues, and that's what they are. There's different members from various different businesses in the community, and they all participate in the organization, not just one company creating it to get more people to use their software. So,
Yeah, well, it's an evolving world. Anyway, the General Services Administration has released the federal domestic per diem rates for fiscal years 2018. The IRS permits taxpayers to use these rates to substantiate business expenses for lodging, meals, and incidental expenses incurred while traveling away from home. The maximum standard per diem rate has increased from $142 to $144, $93 for lodging, $51 for meals and incidental expenses. Per diem rates for localities without standard rates range from $144 to $498. The updated rates are effective from October 1st, 2017 through September 30th, 2018, and they can be downloaded in Excel format if you go on the website. Now, keep in mind, these per diem rates are for federal purposes. If you are a resident in Pennsylvania, you could take the per diem rates and throw them out the window. The Pennsylvania government does not accept it. You can only deduct your actual expenses.
you can use it for federal, but for the state, you have to use the actual.
The actual.
Yeah. So you have to do, if you want to use the per diem for federal, you can, and you either do nothing on the state or use the actual. So you have to do it twice, basically.
Correct.
Yep. The IRS can decide whether they want to follow a particular case or not. In this particular instance, they're announcing that they are not going to acquiesce to a like-kind exchange case, where the taxpayer used an exchange accommodation title holder to facilitate an exchange under Code Section 1031. The taxpayer took possession of the new property through the title holder prior to selling the old property. And the tax court said that under 1031, where it's contemplated from the outset and the exchange accommodation title holder takes title to the property, they're treated as the owner. The IRS said the taxpayer is treated as the owner. The court said no and allowed this particular exchange in this particular case. The IRS said in the future, they're not going to rely on this. So if you're in this particular situation and you do an exchange and the title holder takes possession prior, the IRS is going to disallow it, even though there's a tax court case against it. So you could end up going to tax court in the same situation because they don't necessarily have to file suit.
Yes. The individual and employer health insurance mandates remain the law. Now that the Senate has rejected the GOP proposals for Obamacare repeal, the Affordable Care Act remains in force unless and until changed by Congress. Uninsured individuals must pay a penalty tax if they don't qualify for an exemption. Employers with 50 or more full-timers but no affordable health plan owe a tax if their employees opt to buy insurance on an exchange and qualify for a tax credit. Trump's executive orders on Obamacare do not change the law, and IRS says this privately. So the old law is still the new law until it's been changed by Congress, and the president can't change tax law, only Congress can.
Correct. Correct. In this next case, there was a handyman who ran out of money, and in exchange for reduced rent, he did work for his landlord. And basically, and I tell this to clients all the time, if you barter with somebody, that's still income. Okay, bartering does not make it not taxable income. It is still taxable income. So he got paid by his rent being paid. So the amount that he got is taxable income to him. If he doesn't have a home office or he's not working out of that location, he doesn't have a deduction against it. So it's all taxable income to him. And the same thing to the landlord. To the landlord, all the rent would be taxable income. But being this guy's fixing things in the rental property as the handyman, that portion would be deductible. So it's a wash for the landlord, but not for the handyman. So that's one of the negatives I tell people when they do bartering. If it gets picked up, it's income, and you have to be aware of that. Take a look at that.
Not only is it income, but it is also subject to Social Security tax.
Well, yeah, that's whatever tax you pay, and subject to state, and subject to local, and all
Yes.
that kind of stuff, yes.
Okay. Foreign earned income exclusion has been denied. A taxpayer was denied a foreign earned income exclusion under the section for wages earned from working in Afghanistan and Iraq. To be qualified individual eligible for this exclusion, one of the requirements is that the taxpayer's tax home must be in a foreign country. The Court of Appeals of the Ninth Circuit affirmed that the previous tax court ruling that wages earned in Afghanistan and Iraq were not eligible for the foreign earned income exclusion because the taxpayer did not establish a tax home in a foreign country and was not eligible for the waiver period of stay in a foreign country. Neither Iraq nor Afghanistan was included in the annual revenue procedures listing countries eligible for the waiver. What this means is if you live in a foreign country, but you are a citizen of the United States, there is an exclusion of income that you can deduct on your tax return. You have to pick up all the income that you've earned out of the country, but you get a certain exclusion. I think the exclusion is like $94,000.
Up to $94,000 is exempt, correct.
Right. But if you don't establish a residence in a foreign country, and you must live there for a period of time, it's, let's say, 12 months, you cannot take this exclusion. So you can wind up paying a double tax.
Correct, and it has to be a country that's on the approved list.
Yes.
Okay, and it has to be a country. There was something that came through our office talking about Antarctica.
Right.
And Antarctica technically is not a country. So you can't say you want to take the foreign exemption because it doesn't exist as a country. So It's got to be on the approved list.
Yeah, well, Antarctica, there's really no job opportunities, no food markets. I mean, who would want to live there?
Well, there are people that live there, explorers.
Yeah.
Anyway, there was, in this next case, there was an arrangement with a microcaptive insurance company that IRS and tax court said wasn't insurance. This was a taxpayer that owned various shopping centers and jewelry stores. After consulting with their business and tax advisors, they decided to open their own microcaptive insurance company in St. Kitts, which is an island in the Caribbean that people are trying to move money offshore, and that's apparently what they were trying to do here. This company sold property and casualty insurance policies to various entities, all owned by the taxpayer who owned the companies. For the years at issue, they paid a total of $2.4 million in insurance expense, and the IRS challenged the deductions, arguing that the arrangement didn't qualify as insurance, and the tax court agreed, finding that the arrangement didn't adequately distribute risk to the insurance company. And in addition, the court concluded that the arrangement charged unreasonable premiums, dealt with claims on an ad hoc basis, and made investment decisions that only an unthinking insurance company would make. Therefore, the premiums did not qualify for insurance. So this seems to be something that somebody came up with just to move money out of the country and avoid tax. And
Well,
they got caught.
There are a lot of unscrupulous people who try to evade taxes. Avoiding taxes is one thing. Evading taxes is a criminal offense. And, you know, if it sounds too good to be true, then it's probably not true.
Yeah, and I don't know whether they went for the penalties on this or not. It doesn't say in my summary, but
Right.
they may have.
Yes. Anyway, earlier this year, the IRS rolled out its private debt collection program, which was authorized by Fixing America's Surface Transportation Act. The program enables 4 private sector collection agencies to collect on the government's behalf unpaid income tax debts of individual taxpayers. At a recent IRS nationwide tax firm, Mary Beth Murphy, Commissioner of the IRS Small Business and Self-Employed Division, indicated that the IRS may expand the program to other types of tax debt, such as penalties and business tax liabilities. This is scheduled to occur in 2019, and as the program matures, the IRS will submit the first progress report on the program to Congress in December. And if you are a taxpayer, you will get a letter from the IRS indicating that a private tax collector will be contacting you for the money. And then the private tax collector will contact you for the money. If you do not want to deal with the private tax collector, you do have an option to opt out and deal with the IRS, unless they change that rule. But
I don't know whether they changed that rule or not, but my understanding is they're only sending things to the this collecting agencies for those things that people have been ignoring them on to begin with.
well, procrastination is probably the worst thing that you could do with the IRS.
Yeah, so I would think that they may be able to turn around and say, well, you haven't been cooperating with us, you have to deal with them. So,
Right.
But they also tell you not to talk to people that call on the phone claiming to be tax collectors.
And they
So do not, unless you have a letter from them saying that you're going to get a call from XYZ company, and that company identifies themselves with the information that's in that letter. Because as we have talked about almost every week, there are issues out there with identity theft. Dennis, you had an issue
Yes, I
last
did.
week where
Yes.
your contacts got compromised.
Right.
And all his contacts got invoices with links supposedly from DocuSign that were not from DocuSign.
Right.
I myself got 2 of them. So unless you know I didn't open it because I wasn't expecting, I've gotten invoices from him before, they don't come that way. And I didn't open it. But if you looked at the link, it was to someplace in the UK. It wasn't DocuSign. So if you get, that's just another fraud thing that's out there trying to get your information. Be careful on any links that you sign on for in anything, any email you get.
And if you do get something with a link from someone you know, give them a call.
Correct.
Just don't assume it was from that person that sent it.
Correct.
I got something from you, Dennis.
Yes.
I got one from you.
Really?
Yeah, Rob got one too.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. He sent,
I was like,
he
this-
asked me.
It was
if
an
real.
invoice for something, and I'm like, Dennis doesn't send me invoices. What's
Right.
going on here?
That's correct. You were just one of the people in his contact list.
See, I think highly of you. You're on my contact list.
Yeah, and he and
And I
Rob
think highly
sent
of
me
you
the
because you
email.
don't
What
send me
is this?
invoices.
So
That's right. I asked Mike. I said, "What's the
That's right.
story here?"
yeah, I forgot that you got that.
Yeah.
So there's a revenue procedure that says that at times there's a limited exception for domestic partnerships with 10 or fewer partners, where if all of the partners report the income, the partnership may not have to file the tax return. Okay. However, the chief counsel of the IRS said that it doesn't provide an automatic exemption for partnerships from the requirement of filing the 1065. So they're saying that you still have to file the 1065, even though this procedure is out there, which I've never relied on this procedure. We always file the partnerships. Because especially when you have partnerships up to 10 people, you can't verify as the account that everybody filed and included the income. So we make sure all the partnerships that we do file.
There is a penalty based upon a number of partners that
That's
you're
correct.
assessed if you do not file
That is
the
correct.
partnership tax return.
So the chief counsel is saying don't rely on this, and I would say the same thing, actually. The last thing is I want to comment on is we've been hearing a lot about tax reform being a priority in Congress. Anybody that thinks the tax reform is going to come down quickly and be real reform is crazy, because they can't do it. If they really want to do tax reform, they've got to pretty much rewrite the entire code, and it's going to take several years to do it.
Well, they don't have to rewrite it. They can only make it more confusing.
Yeah, they'll come out with something else that says, okay, now we're changing this to this, so now you have an exception to what's in the code. So they're basically making it more difficult.
When I first started out, there was a general rule and 2 exceptions, and no one fell under either exception. Today, there are 1,001 exceptions and the general rule, and no one falls under the general rule.
Correct. Correct. So now we're going to get to our topic, motivating your staff back into shape after summer. And our guests are Dr. Phil Pappas. Phil, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, I'm a clinical nutritionist. Have a lot of experience in the medical field, about 24, 25 years. And now I've been doing mostly natural medicine, and particularly nutrition. So I've been doing this in a private practice. And if I step back a little bit, I worked in the psychiatric field as a psychologist. I have degrees in psychology, nutrition, and the pharmacology I did working for several pharmaceutical corporations over the years. So my medical background is strong. And basically I see people on a daily basis with, actually, they come in usually after they've failed to be successful in something that came up medically for them. And now they're looking for more answers. Or, you know, I went to the doctor, but it didn't, you know, nothing's really improved. So they're actually harder cases to deal with, because now what do I do? You know, if the doctor couldn't fix them, why am I doing this? So it becomes pretty difficult, but we have a very good success rate.
Good. And our other guest is Joe King. Joe?
I'm a personal trainer. I've been training for over 15 years. I'm also a strength coach and a high school football coach. Most of my clients are in-home clients. I also do corporate team and motivational training as well. And I've been doing it, the corporate stuff, for the past 10 years. And,
Great. Great. So, I mean, I know the topic is motivating your staff back in shape after summer. Why do people get out of shape over the summer besides hot dogs and ice cream and French fries and barbecues in general? Donuts.
Don't exclude pizza.
Can't exclude. But pizza people eat that all year round. But
I don't think there's one reason, Mike. I think it's a combination of lack of time management, motivation, and a little bit of willpower that I think people in the business world don't create. That willpower.
Joe, I don't call
Yes.
that willpower. I call it won't power.
That's great, Dennis. Perfect. So, but I think it's a combination of those things. I think it's hard for people that are very busy in the business world, family and everything, to find time or to try to prioritize their day to make fitness and nutrition a part of their life. I think there's a lot of excuses going on. I think it's really important for offices and corporations to create a healthy environment, and I think a lot of companies don't go out of their way to really help their employees to think healthy, and that's going to create more energy in the workplace, be more productive, and probably save a lot of money on healthcare costs as well.
Yeah, I would agree with what Joe says, but remember, what you do wrong in the summer becomes part of your habit into the next year. Before you know it, you've got a whole cascade of downhill health issues or, things you're doing wrong. So suddenly, now I'm stressed out, and now I'm gaining weight, now I have arthritis, and it just goes on. And think about the employer here. His costs, if he's providing insurance, becoming more and more expensive.
yeah, okay. That's interesting and something that we'll talk about after the break. When we come back, we'll get into the topic a little further and see what we come up with. Thank you.
It's Rob Bell, Tripartisan Radio, and we've got Steve.
Hey folks, this is Steve Falcone. I'm here to share my conservative political views with the rest of this great gang.
We've got Vinny.
I'm Vinny V, and I'm here to talk about the liberal end of the situation and how it's more than just liberal, it's spiritual.
Well, let's face it, there's a huge divide right now in this country between the left and the right. A lot of people think President Trump is just a terrible president. Other people think he is a breath of fresh air. We're here to talk about all that and more, so tune in on PANJ Radio. We're live on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. And join us as we discuss politics like you've never heard before.
Hey, I'm Deirdre Anderson with Delish Catering,
And I'm Laura Mangone from Chambers Walk Cafe and Catering.
and we'd like you to join us on Food for Thought, where what do we talk about, Laura? We talk about restaurants, we talk about
Pet
recipes,
peeves,
pet
food.
peeves, bitchy hostesses,
All sorts of food-related items.
all sorts of
Tune
food
in.
stuff, and sometimes not so much food stuff. We go off on segues, but we have a lot of fun, don't we?
Absolutely.
So join us on Food for Thought.
PANJradio.com, 1 o'clock weekdays.
Hey, this is Danny Coleman, the host of Rock On Radio, and I'm thrilled to be coming to my new home right here on PANJradio.com from Lambertville, New Jersey, where you'll hear the best of indie artists every Sunday night, 7 p.m. I'm excited. You should be too. Rock on.
Welcome back to Business Tax Matters with Mike and Dennis. I'm your host again, Michael Davis. I'm a certified public accountant, and my co-host is Dennis Markowitz.
And I am an enrolled agent.
We both operate from Bucks County, Pennsylvania, and our mission is to inform our listeners every other week as to the aspects of running a business, the tax code, and answer any questions that you may have. So please call your questions into 609-460-4673 with any of your questions. Today we're also simulcast live on video through the PANJ YouTube at panjtv.com. And we'll monitor your comments on there and provide any feedback. Again, today is August 29th, 2017, so if you're listening to one of the replays over the next week at 11 a.m., or from a podcast at panjradio.com, or from our website at businesstaxmatters.com, send an email with your questions to businesstaxmatters@mjdaviscpa.com, and we'll answer that on our next show. Again, our call-in number is 609-460-4673. So now back to our topic, motivating your staff back into shape after summer, with our special guests, Joe King.
Hello.
And Dr. Phil Pappas.
Good morning.
So, gentlemen, we before the break, we identified a couple things, a couple of reasons that people get out of shape. I think vacation, the bad habits you pick up on vacation is probably one of the biggest ones. I don't think we mentioned that before the break. What do you guys recommend businesses look for when people are coming back to work?
I would say I would ask how their summer was. August is a very, very tough time for fitness. I usually give a lot of my clients off for August. Let them eat whatever they want. Let them, do their thing on vacation. It's very hard for anybody to stay committed to a workout routine in August. You're traveling, you're on vacation, you're grabbing whatever you want to eat. You're with the kids eating ice cream. So it's very, very hard to find that want power, Dennis, and that lack of discipline. It's very hard to find the discipline to stay on track in that situation. I think it's good. September is a phenomenal time for any company or small business to implement a plan for their employees coming back from the summer. As long as your employees are excited about it, make it fun, make it not work. Make it fun. Let's change the environment here. Everybody wants to get into shape. And normally everybody doesn't feel good after August. They're going back to work. They know they didn't eat well over the summer. They know they probably didn't work out in August too well due to a lack of schedule.
I have found that the first place that someone has to start is in their own mind. If you want to, let's say, exercise, you have to establish in your mind it's a thing to do. Don't question it. Don't give any options, alternatives, not to do it. So to me, it's a psychological effect. It's all in the mind. And at the end of the summer, the feeling is, oh, gee, the summer is over, my vacation is over, now I got to wait another year. How to motivate them, I don't know. You guys are the experts. And it's difficult because everyone has a different motivation, a different idea of what they want to do or not do. But I have found that a healthy person performs much better than someone who's not in shape, is not healthy, and psychologically is, I would say, depressed because of their situations. And, it's wonderful. If everybody could be healthy, that would be good. But not everyone is healthy. Everybody has some other problem. And I think for the employer, it's, number one, recognizing it is the most difficult part. Two is what to do about it. Well, whether the employer wants to do anything or can afford to have anything done, it's part of life. So I'll let you guys go on.
If I could add something.
Absolutely.
I have some industrial psych background. That's not what I do normally. I'm doing stress, panic attack, anxiety. However, blends together. If the work environment or the home environment, whatever it is a continual high stress situation, our bodies change. It's a complicated hormonal type of thing. So the stress is hitting us, and we're creating the wrong kind of hormones. And those stress hormones create problems like weight gain and changing overall of our normal balance of hormones. So things start to go out of whack, and maybe we start having more anxiety, and we get a panic attack. So it is, I think, something important to an employer. If it's a stressful situation, you're not going to get a good employee. So to make that employee happier and less stressed, it's going to help the bottom line, I would think. I'm not the business guy here. However, I'll give you an example of how the employee or a person in general might have they believe one thing and they believe it to be true, but it might not be. So I had a weight client who was, first of all, very tall person, but had a lot of weight, looked good, and was trying to lose weight. They said, yeah, but now I'm concerned. I'm going to Italy, and I'm going to be eating pie, and I'm just going to eat everything I see in Italy because that's my vacation. So, and I was doing full body composition on this person, so I knew the exact weight. I knew the pounds of body fat, the pounds of water. I knew everything about them. And I do that with a computer system. They go to Italy, they come back, they lost 10 pounds because they didn't take into consideration that in Italy, where they went, they were walking everywhere, which is what they didn't do here. So in reality, what their perception would be wasn't necessarily what was happening. So it's kind of important to understand what, the ramifications are. I go to work, am I going to eat a brunch, 10 o'clock? Am I going to, let's look at this carefully. We're not moving at work. A lot of jobs today, you're sitting still. Why would you need 4 meals? Or maybe you need 4 very small meals. You've got to make the adjustments, and like you said, in the mind, you got to start thinking about this a lot more carefully. It sometimes isn't what we've been, taught to believe.
Yeah, and I find that when people are healthier and less stressed, they do concentrate better.
Of course.
They're
And
much more
work better
productive.
and are more productive, and the work product that they do is better.
And I did forget to say one thing. When you have stress hormones, they're also inflammatory. So now you're going to get an employee who gets more inflammatory illnesses during the winter months, possibly. And now you're getting missing days of work. So although, again, not my specialty, I do remember that that's an important part of the business. We want our employees to be there.
What always amazed me is that we have presidents who are in their 70s typically, and the stress on that job is incredible. I mean, you look at Obama, he had dark hair when he entered and all gray hair when he left. How an individual 70 years old can put up with the stress and remain healthy is always a question mark in my mind.
Correct.
It would be a very special person who could survive that, yeah.
Yeah, but most of the presidents seem to be later in life, for whatever reason that may be.
Well, supposedly they're more knowledgeable and more understanding.
Or they can do the campaign, which is extremely rugged. If you can do the campaign, you probably can do the presidency.
Yeah, the campaign takes a lot out, a lot
Brutal.
of running around.
Oh, just awful.
And constantly moving, a lot of lack of sleep, always on the go, and then keeping up with your speeches, I would think.
Yep.
So I would think there'd be a lot of lost sleep. And lost sleep is another thing that affects people's work, too. And when they get stressed out and they get anxiety, as you were talking about, that can interrupt their sleep and not get them a good full night's sleep.
I hear that all the time. Very often they'll go to sleep and they wake up at 3 in the morning. They don't know why they're waking up. They're waking up because things aren't right. I always tell my clients, your daytime stress is your nighttime sleep problem. It's not a nighttime problem.
It was an interesting article I read a couple of days ago about they're suggesting that students start the school day at 8:30 because they don't get enough sleep or rest to be able to learn at a better rate. So that's,
Yeah, I think it fits our bodies better. Waking young kids up too early is really not the greatest idea. What do they do in the summer? They sleep till 9 o'clock or 8:30.
Or on the weekends.
yes.
Yeah.
Well, when I went to school, I liked early classes because I was up, I had my cup of coffee, I was refreshed, and by the time the afternoon came after lunch, I was ready for my nap. So those classes weren't as well.
Well, did you take the nap in the classes?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I was notorious for that, how I kept my eyes open and fell asleep.
I did that in morning classes.
Yeah.
I'm not a morning person.
The only problem I had was the snoring.
Oh, okay. That
I
I
have a-
didn't have a problem with.
I
I
have a
have it
question.
now, but I didn't have it then.
I have a question about napping,
Yes.
because everybody says naps are really good for you, but if I try to do a nap and I sleep a little bit too long, I don't feel like I ever get. I feel worse after I get up from a nap. What do you guys think of napping?
I'm okay with a nap. I can't nap because I can't fall asleep during the day. But I think it's good if you're physically busy, if you have a physically demanding job. I think it's great mentally and physically to get a good nap in.
I think everybody's a little different. Some people can have a 5-minute nap and do great. I think once you go past a half hour, 45 minutes, it starts to become sleep, and you might not be able to sleep in the evening.
Well, Dr. Phil, you're correct. Everybody is different. Like, I can take a 10-minute nap and I can get up and I feel much better. And that's probably because, like a computer, you shut it down, and when you reboot it, it clears out all the fuzz and everything else. But everybody's different.
I'm one for taking naps too. I do it a lot. Matter of fact, when I went buying my new chair for my office, I tested it napping, leaning back and, then make sure it was comfortable enough for me to do that.
Well, Mike, one thing about you, I get an email at 12:30 or 1 o'clock in the morning, about something.
Yeah, but you're reading it and answering also at that time. So, don't make like it's just me. But yeah, and that also, the nap also enables me to continue to go.
Yes.
Sometimes that late when I need to get work done.
There was a corporation in New York that actually put in recliners in a room, darkened room, and actually it was a study on top of it because they were a medical type of group, and they actually asked people to take, I believe it was a 5-minute nap, a 15-minute nap, and a half-hour nap. At least they tried to get those groups together, and they actually looked at productivity. How did they feel? And there was a lot of data in there that showed that the 5-minute nap could be very effective. And
Yeah, I agree with it.
anti-stress, but it also made for a more productive employee, and they seem to be a lot happier.
Well, I have found as I get tired, I can't concentrate as well on what I'm working on. But if I take that 5-minute nap when I get up, I can do what I needed to do before without any problem at all. So, yeah, I do it a lot when I need to, especially during tax season when we're working just ridiculous hours. But Joe, I know you've worked with companies and helping companies put packages together for employees. How do you do that for them? I know if, according to the tax law, if a company pays for gym memberships for employees and the gym is outside the office place, it's deductible to the company, but it's income to the employee. If they do it within the confines of the office, and everybody has to be eligible to use the facility, that can be deducted. And then it's not income to the employee for the cost of that. But what do you do to set up these programs, and what do you look for in each company?
I normally go in, I talk to the employees, and figure out what's going to work best for them to be consistent with a routine. It might be 5 minutes a day of movement, a few nutritional adjustments that Dr. Pappas could help out there with, but basically what's going to work for you during your day that you're going to consistently keep with it. If it's 5 minutes every other day, it's about routine and consistency. I think the biggest mistake that a lot of people make when they start to work out is trying to go crazy. Oh, I got to go to the gym for 45 minutes. I have to do this. It's usually the biggest mistake ever. I'll go into a company and say, what can we do for 5 minutes? What can you do for 5 minutes a day? You could take a nap for 5 minutes. You could functional movement through stretching and maybe by the chair you sit in every day. At the same time, maybe to set up a little bit of structure within your business. And make that a part of your plan for your company. And I think employees are motivated by that. I think they think, okay, well, my bosses or my company really does care. They want me to be healthy. And it shouldn't be work. It should be fun for your team. I think it's always a lot more productive if you have a staff that motivates each other. It's not one or two people that, I want to get into shape. If everybody collectively wants to better themselves, they're going to push each other, and they're going to be like, all right, let's get this thing going. And I think teamwork is very important. Coming from a high school football coach, teamwork is key.
And to reinforce that, if I may, there's a condition called sarcopenia, which the FDA has recognized as an actual medical condition. And that condition basically is a condition of loss of muscle mass. When you lose muscle mass, you lose the ability to metabolize glucose properly. And think about what's one of the fastest growing conditions in this country. It's diabetes. So sarcopenia is a way of explaining it and measuring that condition. So I measure that every day on my clients, and I see, when I see somebody with a 50% body fat, I know this person's in serious condition. Even if there's nothing wrong with them, usually there is, they're in for a real rocky road ahead because something's going to go wrong.
So, Joe, when you put these programs together, do you do it based on each employee or based on the company as a whole?
I do both. I collectively sit down with everyone and try to figure out. I mean, there might be 2 employees that are bodybuilders that are fitness gurus in the group, and there might be a handful of people that never worked out in their life. So I think collectively I try to get everybody on the same page with doing something and changing the environment and making it a healthy workplace and making it fun, like I said before.
Joe, what do you do with employees that have problems at home, whether it's the kids in trouble, the spouse, or whatever? I mean, this is something that's part of what we're discussing. Can you do anything or recommend anything for that to relieve that pressure?
I think the workout itself and the healthy work environment will transfer to home once they develop the commitment, and it takes time. It takes, I think once they get into a mindset of they want to change at work, and it might carry over. So my goal is to try to change that perspective and mindset of, okay, I'm going to make a change. And normally if they're starting to make a change at work, sometimes that'll transfer to their home life as well.
And I might add what Joe says is really important because you get into routine of waking up at the same time, going to bed at the same time, exercising at a specific time. Before you know it, you've got a routine going. You're not worried too much about, if you get all this time on your hands to worry about, well, my son is doing this or my daughter's doing this, it's too much time. You shouldn't be worrying about them. Think about yourself a little bit because if you don't think about yourself, you're going to get fired, or, your job performance is going to go down. You're not really helping your family. Worrying doesn't help anything. So it's kind of important to get into a routine and work that routine so you don't worry about things you can't control.
Dr. Phil, I have a question. I've always asked this question and got different answers. What is the best time to exercise? Is it early morning or is it the evening?
That is, again, kind of individualized. Some people do better in the evening, some do better in the morning. But overall, from a point of view of your hormones and your circadian rhythms and everything about you as a human, it's probably more towards the beginning of the day, before 3 o'clock. After 3 o'clock, as your hormones change to get you ready to sleep, you would think there'd be a disadvantage. You wouldn't be able to work out quite the way you want. You're fighting more uphill, whereas if you're exercising in the morning, it's a little more downhill. Not to say that both couldn't be successful, but you are working, you're working against, against the flow, so to speak, after 3 o'clock.
Phil, you were talking a couple minutes ago about a routine. I find that being self-employed, it's really tough to get into a routine because there's always something out there interfering with it. Any thoughts on how self-employed people can work around that? Because it's really difficult.
Well, it starts with waking up, and what's your routine? You gonna have breakfast? I hope so. Breakfast helps, keeps your brain functioning. You have something, to burn in the brain. If you don't have breakfast, you don't wake up at the same time, it kind of right away sets the stage for not such a good day. And then you got to deal, you have a job where things never go quite the same. So you've got to deal with that. Maybe that's the job. If you get good at that, right?
Yeah.
Could be. So, and if it suits you, it's going to be fine. But you've got to have that routine. You've got to do things in a logical way. And you got to fuel the furnace. So I worry less about that kind of thing than I do the overall picture. That good sleep, good food. And just from what Joe says, he probably would agree with me. You join the gym and you're working out, but they think about the nutrition last. Mm-hmm. Is that right? And you got to help them out with that.
Yeah, it's 75%.
Yeah, you go into the gym and you don't want to be a pizza guy going into the gym. You got to change that.
Well, I've got a friend that his exercise program is based on what he eats that day or the day before. And that's, he knows what he eats and he knows how much he has to work how much he has to work out to get that off. And that's how he bases his exercise.
I used to work out at a gym in the morning, and there was a group of people, after they exercised, they went next door to the donut shop and bought donuts because they figured they worked it off. And
we don't, who invests anything in nutrition, in the education of nutrition? We should be teaching in a great world, if everything was just right, your first grade teacher would mention nutrition on almost a daily basis. Oh, what are we having for lunch? Why are we having that for lunch? Just a little bit of nutrition education. What we have in school today is zero. Now, you got to eat to stay alive. Why wouldn't that be an important part of education? But we ignore it, and parents don't do it anymore because they weren't trained, excuse me.
Well, it's the same thing with financial literacy.
Yeah, there you go.
That both of them very important to people.
Yeah,
and
two very important.
it's
ignored at
left
school.
out of school.
Right.
Yeah. Joe, how do you work with self-employed people in training?
I try to get them, like Dr. Papa said, I try to get them on a schedule, a consistent schedule, although that might change, obviously. But if you can wake up and have a routine where you eat breakfast, check your computer, and even myself, I try to mark down, okay, I'll schedule myself. I'm pretty scripted. But I'll say 9 o'clock, I plan on spending 25 minutes and going to work out. I'll mark it in my book like I have a client, like I have an email to send, I have a phone call to make. I'll make that part of my schedule, and if something comes up, I'll try to move that around a little bit. But try to schedule like anything else, but try to make that. I don't switch my work schedule, but I try to work it into, okay, I have a half hour right there. I can make that my workout time.
I know Mike and I are the same. Once we get into that office and turn the computer on, we may have a schedule in mind, but it never works that way. There's always something that comes up, a phone call, a notice, or whatever.
Or the staff.
Yes. It's always something.
Somebody's always got something going on where there's an issue, which is one of the reasons I work almost every night, because I don't get a lot of work done because I'm answering the phone or customer issues. I'm answering employee issues, and that's always in the way.
Mike, you forgot your children.
Yeah, well, at 37, you would think that would have gone away, but it hasn't.
Maybe that's a success-failure thing. The person that can do that, smile and enjoy it, may be the successful person. The person that pulls their hair out and screams, they're not going to be so successful.
Well, that's true. As I tell people all the time, self-employment is not a job, it's a lifestyle. and it's not 9 to 5. It's all day. It's 24/7.
You could probably tell from Mike that he's tried pulling his hair out, but he realized it didn't help.
No, it hasn't helped. So I want to thank you. Any closing words?
Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure. If you want to go on my Instagram account, JK Training, I'll talk to you right there.
Ditto for me. He said everything I was going to say. I would ask that if you're listening, you can go to earthfoods.us. That's our website. Get some information there, and you'll see products that I use on a daily basis. And if you have questions, certainly direct them to us at earthfoods@gmail.com. I answer everybody, whether they call or email. I don't pass on a question. I answer questions.
Okay. Well, thank you. And thank you for your input. It was very interesting, very informative. And I want to thank everybody for listening. Our next show is going to be 2 weeks from today, and I hope to address all of you at that time. Thank you, Dennis.
You're welcome. And to our audience, I hope you're invigorated now that summer is over and you're not disappointed, and that you could start fresh and start realizing there's more important things in life than money. Of course, it helps.
And we're sorry that the summer is coming to an end this week. So thank everybody for listening. Have a great day.